Hello, Superboy Legacy fans. This is your Superboy fact checker, Chris Jacobsen. Here with me, as always, is our editor-in-chief, the great Tom Gallagher. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Chris. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, not bad. I'm slowly getting over the chest infection that I had. As soon as that went away, as soon as my lungs started feeling better, my nose started running. So I'm still a little bit bunged up. It's been almost 2 weeks at this point that I've been, not quite right, but I'm on the mend.
Well, that's good to hear.
We're going to do something like last week. We did something we've not done for quite some time, comic review. Now we're going to do something else that we've not done in some time, which is we're going to pick up where we left off with the Ruby Spears animated series.
Yes, we are.
Severely underrated. I think we can say this is a good show, at least so far from what I've seen. I'm enjoying the hell out of it.
And, this is going to be episode 3, which is By the Skin of the Dragon's Teeth and At the Babysitters. I'm going to say,
yeah, I'm loving this series just for putting Super Baby into a show, because I always loved at the back of comics when you'd have the Super Baby sort of comedy stories.
Yeah,
it's so much fun. It's like Superman, but in the Looney Tunes universe at times, because it's very slapstick. It's great. The fact that it's in animation, I'm amazed this is the only time it's been done.
Yeah, when I first watched this show back in '88, Saturday mornings on CBS, I hated these shorts, these Superman family shorts.
Were you familiar with the Super Baby stuff from the comics, or was it like?
I was okay with that, but I was looking at it like this. A lot of that old Silver Age stuff had been excised from the comics by this point. He was never Superboy; he was Superman. Okay, and to then have an animated series where they're doing just that, they're doing the Silver Age stuff. It was a little annoying because it was almost like
you wanted some synergy between.
Yeah, the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing.
You could argue the same thing though about Superboy.
Yeah.
The fact that show exists at all is kind of a miracle, really.
Yeah. But over the years, I've kind of learned to live with them, and some of them are actually pretty good. Once he gets to be like 10, 11, 12 in the episodes, because there's only 13 of those shorts. As he gets to be 10, 11, 12, and then in high school years, they get to be a little bit more, I guess, not so cringeworthy for me. But I deal with them because they're there.
Fair enough. We disagree a little bit on Super Baby, but I love the Super Baby sections in the comics. It's some of my favorite comic book reading experiences, because often I'll pick up an issue of a comic, like I'll see it on eBay really cheap, and it's like I don't recognize the cover, so I'll buy it and just
right.
And then I don't check the back, and I'm reading the comic and the story ends, and I look and I see there's a Super Baby, like 5-page or something, like maybe less than that even, Super Baby story, and sometimes they're really funny. And yeah, I don't know, I've got a soft spot in my heart for Super Baby. I think it's a lot of fun, and seeing it in animation is great. It's really cool just to hear from talking to you that it's going to go as he gets older as well.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Family album. It's not all going to be baby pictures.
Yeah, it's the first 3 are kind of, well, first 2 are definitely baby and then toddler. At the babysitter.
Yeah, when I say Super Baby, I mean super toddler at times. It's just
episodes 3 and 4 at the babysitters, and then the first day at school. That's definitely toddler, era. That's preschool, kindergarten. beyond that, let's see. Before we start the
You know
episode,
what? Maybe it'll be fun just to get there when we get there.
yeah, I just want to take a look overnight with the scouts. Okay, that's when we're starting to be like 8, 9, 10, 11, and the circus, little runaway. Yeah, so they do age with him over the course of the 13.
I really respect that. That's a cool choice to make. But anyway, shall we get started with episode 3 of Ruby Spears' Superman?
Yes, absolutely. So everybody, you know how this works if you've watched before. Those of you who haven't, just a little heads up. You're not going to be seeing any of the episode in this video. Okay, this is not like a typical comment, reaction video. We're not going to show portions of the episode. You've got to watch it alongside with us. So if you have it digitally, like you bought it on Amazon or got it on YouTube or whatever, that's fine. Or if you're going to use your DVD, that's also fine. We're going to count you in. 3, 2, 1, play, and then you just hit play on By the Skin of the Dragon's Teeth / At the Babysitters.
Okay.
All right. So 3, 2, 1, play. Got to shut the sound off, huh, Tom?
Yeah, forgot about that. I'm not even wearing my headphones. But it's just the title sequence at the moment, so I'll quickly get them on.
Yep.
I still love that they use the Christopher Reeve, John Williams theme.
Yeah. Christopher Reeve, John Williams theme, plus the opening voiceover from the George Reeves show and the radio show.
I would say that it gives it kind of a timeless Superman quality, but you can tell the era that the animation's from just by looking at it, really. It's a very 80s looking show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, even though it was only 13 episodes, Ruby Spears did some of their finest work on this show.
Mm.
And, as much as I love Dana Delaney as Lois Lane in the later animated series, Jenny McSwain does a really great job here.
Mm. And Jimmy Olsen does a good job too. I don't know who plays him, but
Mark someone. I know he was also the voice of Firestorm in the Super Friends cartoon.
That's cool.
And Bo Weaver, he is phenomenal as Clark and Superman in this.
Mm.
And it's interesting that, like 6, 7 years later, he's actually the voice of Reed Richards on the Fantastic Four cartoon.
That is cool. Nice little bit of, clumsy Clark going on there. And falling into the water gives him a good opportunity to change his clothes, I imagine.
Yep.
Something else I've got to say, the designs for the characters, like Superman in particular, he really does look like a combination of the John Byrne Superman and, the earlier awesome stuff by Kurt Swan.
Yep.
It's a nice sort of combination of the two. And I like that they've not tried to stylize the look of the characters to make it easier on themselves. They're just trying to make it look like the comics. And I respect that. I think that's a really, really cool thing.
Yeah, and it if you look at the fashions on them, it's definitely 80s fashions. I mean, Jimmy's not wearing the bow tie.
Yeah, it's like a modernization, but you can see where it's coming from. You can see the influence is still there.
And talking about Kurt Swan, we don't really get any kind of Kurt Swan era stuff until the episode The Hunter, where we get the Phantom Zone.
That's cool. I look forward to that one.
And when we get to that, you're going to love who they've got voicing General Zod.
Let me find it, but surprise me when we get there.
Yeah, I'm just giving you the teaser now, but that's like 3 or 4 episodes away.
I love though that Lex Luthor in this, he's bought the Great Wall of China, and the first thing he does is stick a big L on the side.
Yep.
Which I'm guessing that's just his favourite part of the Great Wall, considering how damn long it is.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's just L's the whole way along.
Probably.
Miss Morganberry.
She's like a cross between Otis and Miss Tessmacher.
Yeah.
She's really dumb like Otis, but she's
I'm just surprised. I'm just surprised though that considering they used the John Williams theme, I'm surprised they didn't just make her Tessmacher.
I don't know if they had the rights to use the name.
Yeah, probably not. Maybe they would have had to pay Mario Puzo or something if they used her.
Yeah. But the whole reason why she's there is to have Lex be able to talk to somebody.
Yeah. I'm sure that Darla was a similar sort of situation. They were just like, we've got all this fun dialogue that we want to give Sherman Howard, but he needs someone to bounce off. And they killed off Leo, so I guess they needed someone.
Yeah.
Our viewers know that we both wish that they kept Leo around, because the comedy that would have come from Leo and Darla bickering all the time would have been gold.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been like,
they would have hated each other, and it would have been so much fun to watch.
Yeah, 2 jealous children, or the theory that you and I have talked about, numerous times.
Yeah.
That there was some kind of sexual tension between Leo and Lex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Considering, was it 3 episodes or 4 that there was of Lex and Leo in season 1?
4.
4. And out of those 3 episodes, it is you can see where some of the speculation comes from, judging by the fact that one of those episodes involves Lex and Leo hanging around in tight swimming suits.
Yeah.
Chatting, But to be honest, that was 80s fashion, It looks a little strange now. You question it a little bit.
Yeah.
But, as much as we respect the showrunners and stuff, there's no way they would have done something like that. I don't think they would have had the nerve to do something like that, really. The studio certainly wouldn't have wanted to air it. Superman does look a little bit like Christopher Reeve at times as well, in the face.
Yeah,
I know that he influenced the art. I know even John Byrne had elements of Chris Reeve in his Superman.
Yeah.
It's just every now and then this show, it's like the face morphs a little bit into Christopher Reeve, and then it's out again. It's just a second.
I think I think Marv Wolfman, because he was the head writer of the show.
Mm.
I think he had some kind of influence, and he said, "Yeah, maybe you should make him look a little bit like Reeve. I mean, you're already going to use a variation on the Reeve music."
It's like plenty of artists working on the comics put elements of Reeve into their work. It happens,
Yeah, I mean, look at the the pre-New 52 comics, Gary Frank, every time he was drawing Superman, it was Reeves' face.
Yeah. It's part of why I love Gary Frank's artwork so much. I love the way he does Superman. Like,
and I mean, you can see it. You can definitely see it in his and Jeff Johns' Legion story.
Oh, totally. Well, every time Jeff Johns and Gary Frank work on a Superman story, Superman looks like that. And it's cool because you can literally pick up all of the stories that they've did together. And if you read them in order, you don't need whatever stories came out between them, because it kind of feels like one continuous run, because the artwork is so consistent. Yeah, I know Jeff Johns isn't the most popular guy in the world at the moment. I don't know how much of it is justified and how much of it isn't, but I really love the way that he's written Superman. Like, he's written most of my favorite Superman comics of all time.
I mean, just that Brainiac story that he did with Gary Frank.
Yeah, masterpiece. That was one of the first hardcover comic books that I actually bought. I usually just get paperback because they're cheaper.
Yeah.
In fact, I might even have all of the Jeff Johns and Gary Frank Superman stories as hardcover.
And there was an article done in Wizard, right around that time, before Wizard, folded, where Frank was actually showing off his design sketches, and obviously, he shows Superman, and it's Reeve. There's no question, it's Reeve. There's bits of Margot Kidder in his Lois.
Oh yeah, you can tell it's not completely Margot Kidder, but there's panels where you can definitely see her.
Yeah, and then one of the best things that they did in that issue is they're showcasing some of the characters that they plan on bringing into the storylines. He had a design for Power Girl. He was going to base her face on Meg Ryan.
I kind of like that. Yeah. But anyway, in this episode, just a minute ago, I always love when Superman sort of spins as he flies and tunnels through rock. Like, obviously, he did it in Superboy in Mind Games, and it was a fun moment.
Yeah.
But I always like when he does stuff like that. It's a fun use of his powers.
Yeah, that's a very Silver Age use of powers, but it's a fun thing.
Yeah. So of course Lex Luthor does it anyway.
Yep.
I mean, they can see it moving too, Superman. Like, get back, that thing's alive. It's like, yeah, we're watching it swing a hammer. But no.
I still find it funny, what Marv Wolfman said in an interview, and I think it was Back Issue Magazine when they were talking about this. He said that, and it harkens back to the first episode, Destroy the Defendroids. He said, you can't have him punch the robots and destroy them because robots have feelings too. So some of the choices that they had for the show were ridiculously overbearing, as far as, we can't do this because of this. He rarely ever punches things.
Yeah, maybe it's a similar situation to what people thought the 90s Spider-Man animation had. Because, like, at some point, a few years ago, like, there was people making videos about the fact that Spider-Man only ever really kicks people in that show. You never really see him punch people and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was speculated for a long time that maybe it was a studio note or maybe, a ratings board thing, and they were just like, it's too violent, you can't have him punching people. But some of the showrunners and writers actually came out a little while after and actually said, no, that's bullshit. Like, that was never a thing. The reason why Spider-Man mostly kicks people in the show is because it just looks cooler. So that's what we had the animators draw.
Yeah.
It's just like, it looks cooler when he kicks people. So that's what they did.
Yeah. Except, I think that's just the standard answer for it.
Yeah.
Marvel.
This was a long time after regarding the Spider-Man thing. They had no reason to keep those secrets anymore.
Yeah. But Marv Wolfman, I mean, he was talking about this in the back issue where they talked about the show. And he said, yeah, we weren't allowed to have him punch things unless they were, like inanimate objects, like rocks or missiles. He couldn't punch the bad guy, even if the bad guy was just as strong as he was.
Yeah. Television, ratings, classification, whatever you call it. I forget even what do you even call it, your organization in America? Because we have a different one, so.
The hell do they call it? I think it's the FCC here in the US.
That's it. The FCC, yeah. Things are getting easier, but I imagine there's still kids animated shows that have the same dumb rules even to this day.
Yeah.
It's why the South Park creators always throw in a bunch of jokes that they don't intend to even have in the episode, just so they can appease the FCC or whoever it is. They literally make jokes just so they can be removed, because that way they can keep the jokes they actually want in the episode. I think that's genius.
Yeah.
Man, the animation is really good on this show, though, for the time.
Yeah, like I said, this is Ruby Spears at their peak. I mean,
and the LOS on the cape.
Yeah,
the LOS on the cape looks fine. At the end of the day, if he's far enough away from camera, just switch it to a yellow triangle on the cape. You don't need that much detail.
Yep.
I do have a question, though, because I can't remember off the top of my head. Did any of the animated, straight to DVD and Blu-ray animated DC movies, did they ever put the LOS back on the cape? I vaguely remember it being there in a couple of the stories. I know they had the black S on the cape when they did Death of Superman and Reign of the Superman.
Yeah, the New 52 era shows has the black S.
Which I never liked as much, to be honest, but
yeah,
I liked it. It's something, I guess.
I'm not sure if the more recent ones like Man of Tomorrow and Justice Society and Legion of Superheroes has the S on the.
I don't think Man of Tomorrow does. Just I can't remember it being there. Maybe it is.
Well, those three is because it's the same actor doing the voice of Superman, and it's the same continuity. So I'm not sure.
I'm trying to remember if it was there for when they did All Star Superman or Public Enemies era.
Public Enemies, I don't think so, but it's been a while.
Yeah, I need to watch those again. That'd be a fun thing to do. But the Public Enemies, there was another one that was directly connected to it, but I forget.
Apocalypse.
Yeah, maybe we could do commentaries on those at some point.
Yep.
I think they're worthwhile.
The design on
they're a lot of fun.
The design on this dragon is so great.
It is a really cool design.
And this is the kind of thing that he would have done in the Silver Age as creator, a stone effigy of himself just to hide.
Although, who was that for? Nobody was watching, because he then immediately puts the glasses on.
Yeah, but well, he made the effigy leading up to this because he had to have a reason why
Right, yeah, of
he
course.
disappeared.
Well, let's face it, he didn't need to do that. Clark is perfectly capable of coming up with another excuse. He's very good at it.
Yeah, but doing it like this, it leads to the idea that he got blasted by the dragon.
So yeah, back to the family album.
Yeah, I think most of the family albums were written by Sherry Wilkerson. So they seem to have a similar feel, each one.
Even just down to the music, though, they have a very nursery rhyme fairy tale quality to them.
Yep.
Which is good because you need to establish that these segments aren't 100% serious. They're more just comedic shorts.
Yep. As you said before we even started the episode, they are very Looney Tunes like.
Yeah. Even the original comics are very Looney Tunes like when you read them. Like there's a lot of slapstick and funny moments. Like I imagine you can make a decent super baby to super toddler type show. I think if you had like some of the writers of like Animaniacs doing it, I think you could make a really good fun show out of that could work. But
well, they did sort of do that on actual Pinky and the Brain, have a Super Baby episode, and it actually was Super Baby.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just forgotten. I watched Animaniacs as a kid. I haven't watched the latest stuff. It's been a while since I've watched the old stuff, but
yeah, Brain detects that there's a rocket ship coming towards Earth, and he wants to use the aliens to take over the Earth as usual.
Of course, it's it's Brain.
Yeah, and as you watch the episode, you know exactly who we're dealing with because it's a baby they find in a cornfield in a rocket. They take it back to the lab, and he's demonstrating all these abilities, and then finally, Brain is like, "That's it. I don't care. We're putting him back in the cornfield."
And then Ma and Pa Kent show up.
And it's the last seconds of the short. As Brain and Pinky are walking away, you hear, "Look, Jonathan, a baby in a rocket ship. We'll take him home, and we'll name him Clark."
That's great. And it's Warner Brothers, so they can get away with that. Yeah, it's Warner Brothers and the Warner sister.
How she didn't see him out of the corner of her eye, I'll never know.
There is just something so much fun about Super Baby, just being mischievous rather.
Yeah. Like I said before, I didn't like them when they first aired, but watching them now, they are funny.
Yeah. And I like, though, that, it's not half and half. It's not like the first half of the episode was the first story and the second half is Super Baby. Like, Super Baby skits are like 5 minutes at most.
Yeah.
So, even if they're not your favourite thing, they're over pretty quickly.
Yep.
I don't know. There's something really nice about them. And you know what? I know Brad Bird is a huge Superman fan, and I wonder if it actually inspired the Jack babysitter sequence from Incredibles, because
Probably
that whole
did.
sequence, it's a super baby sequence.
Yeah.
The baby's a little bit younger than typically in the comics, but I know the Incredibles was mostly inspired by Fantastic Four, but everybody knows Brad Bird is a huge Superman fan, so it wouldn't surprise me if Super Baby even if it wasn't even from this particular show, maybe it was just from the comics or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, so that was episode 3, including the Super Baby segment, or the Kent Family album. I should probably refer to it as that, considering that's actually the title. That was a really good episode. I enjoyed that. Like the Lex Luthor stuff was a lot of fun. The whole Great Wall of China. He buys the entire Great Wall of China just so he can excavate under it, because he knows there's treasure down there.
Yep. And I like the fact that they kind of, without actually mentioning it, they mention it, the Terracotta Warriors.
Yeah, with all the statues coming to life and stuff.
Yep.
I've always liked the whole Terracotta Warrior thing. I think it's a really, it's just fascinating. Like, why were they built, and why so many of them and just left there?
Yeah.
It's one of those fascinating mysteries from history. So the fact that they've got some sort of small references to it in this episode, just by extension of just what they're basing their story on, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I forget her name, the not Teschmacher or Darla.
Miss Morganberry.
Miss Morganberry. Inoffensive enough.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm
sold
on her yet,
typical, but she's the typical ditzy blonde.
Yeah. She does what was required of her in this episode. Yep. So she's fine. I loved just some of the details, like Lex putting the L's on the side of the Great Wall. So the first thing he does is he just brands it. I thought that was really fun. Obviously, Superman tunneling through the wall was a lot of fun. I always like seeing that when it happens.
Yep, Clark's use of the events around him to sneak off to change.
Yeah, like falling into the water was obviously the first one, but then later on he does more, and it's
he creates the effigy of himself out of stone so that he can appear like, oh, Clark got turned to stone.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what as well, though, thing I'm appreciating about this show more and more, like, Marv Wolfman was the showrunner, like you said, and I kind of have, in my brain, I associate him automatically with Superman crying holding the dead Supergirl, because Crisis on Infinite Earths, it's a very depressing story for some of the characters. Like, a lot of shit happens. A lot of people die.
Yeah.
So I think of him as quite a serious writer. But this animated series demonstrates to me that, no, the guy has a sense of humor and he's pretty damn funny.
Yeah.
So it's showing me a side of Marv Wolfman that you wouldn't necessarily get from all of his comics. I know he didn't just write serious stuff. Like, there's a really fun, I think it's either a 2 or a 3-part story where Brainiac becomes good. He gets reprogrammed by Superman, and turns out one of Brainiac's weapons is on its way to Earth, but Brainiac, being good, doesn't know how to deactivate it, so Superman has to make him evil again. And it's a really fun story with some cool twists and turns.
Yeah, and of course it led into the later, rebirth of Brainiac as the Terminator-esque design.
Yeah. It's a really fun story, though, and it does have moments of levity. There are comedic points, but not as many as this show is demonstrating. And I know he didn't write the Kent Family album skits, but as showrunner, he signed off on them and he chose who would write them. So
and being that he's the showrunner, he's probably sitting there saying, okay, so we got to change this, if this works, punch it up here, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And I know he did write a few of the episodes. I know he did. He got a lot of famous comic writers to come in. I mean, I think there was I think Andy Helfer did one or two. I'm not sure. I know Martin Pascoe did one or two.
That's cool that Helfer did it, because obviously at the same time he was working on Superboy.
I think, so don't quote me on it just yet.
I won't quote you on it. We'll you can leave a comment when this episode goes up on YouTube. You can leave a comment letting us know if he was.
I know that one or two episodes were written by Steve Gerber.
That's cool.
The creator of Howard the Duck himself.
Oh yeah. I know exactly who Steve Gerber is.
Yeah. And the episode that he did, it's I think it's on disc 2, but it's Bone Chill. And it is a very dark episode for this show. I mean, it doesn't go
I'll look forward to that then.
It doesn't go full on dark like what you would expect nowadays, but for the
compared to the rest of the show, it was the darkest episode.
Yeah, and the villain they have, he's essentially like their equivalent to Mixes Pitlick, because there was only a couple of classic Superman foes that ever showed up in the show. One of them being Luthor, of course. You can't have Superman without Luthor. They had the first animated version of the Prankster.
Yeah, I remember you showing me, and he looks exactly like he does in the comics, which I just love, because one of the things I love about the Prankster is his design. I know that I'm not going to keep harping on about season 5. I know I mention it probably in every video, but we've obviously got Tim Curry as the Prankster, and I've kept the clothes the same, but he's not egg-shaped anymore, and that is a little bit sad for me. I might put Tim Curry in a fat suit, but
I don't know. I think we should just leave.
I think it's fine without it.
Yeah, because remember while the Prankster, classic version from the comics, the big paunch.
He's literally egg-shaped.
Yeah.
He looks like if you pushed him, he would roll away.
Yeah. I mean, leaving him like that, that was just a design choice, but, the more modern version of the Prankster who appeared before the New 52, he was the same Prankster. It's just he'd slimmed down. He was still the same character. It's just he had a little bit more suave look to him.
And you know what? We can all agree that the version of the Prankster in Lois and Clark is quite possibly the worst version of that character.
Oh,
because...
Oh, actually, no. Wait a minute. This version of Prankster is the second version of the Prankster in animation. There was one in the Filmation show from the 60s, but he looked nothing like he's supposed to.
Okay. Was it even a good episode?
It was an okay episode.
So the Lois and Clark Prankster is still the worst?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. No question. No question.
I'm not a fan of that actor, to be honest. I forget the sitcom that he was famous for.
That's Bronson Pinchot, and he was famous for Perfect Strangers.
Right. Yeah. I remember I saw him in, it was a Stephen King, I think it was a 2-part Stephen King miniseries. Was it Langoliers? Yeah. I saw it once. I'm not going to watch it again. I thought
the thing about Bronson Pinchot is he is a very talented stand-up comedian. And he is a good actor if he has the right material. If they had had him as the classic, Oswald Loomis prankster on Lois and Clark, and they punched up his, comedic stuff, it would have worked so much better. But what they were doing with him was just awful.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those episodes. Was it only the one episode, or was it?
No, he had 2.
I thought it was 2.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big fan. But Lois and Clark, especially towards the end, they had some really shit villains. Like, we're gonna, I know you're a fan of the original Night Court, and Harry Anderson was in the last episode of Lois and Clark as what is it? Something Fathead or something, or Fat Brain?
Dr. Fathead Mensa.
Yeah.
the design on him was great.
The design was great, but the episode has some good moments. I'll say that, like when Lois and Clark reveal the truth to Lois's father. That's a nice sequence, and the whole keeping it from her mother because she knows that Lois knows her mother cannot keep a secret. So it's like everybody knows except her. Some really great stuff. But that whole Fathead Mentor storyline, it was just shit.
Well, it almost felt like it was a first draft and they just threw it together.
It's not just the season finale. I mean, it is the season finale, so you assume you'd be, tell the writers to put in a bit more time and effort on that episode.
Yeah.
But the fact that it ends up being the series finale, just in general, is really quite sad. And you can see why the show was cancelled at that point because it had gotten bad. But it's not even just Fathead. What was the other one? Bad Brain. Yeah. That's why like Bad Brain something, and it's just like, just bad names for villains. Why? Surely they had permission to bring in some more villains from the comic. They had a lot of them. It was Warner Brothers were sort of pushing this as the big Superman project at the time because the movies were going nowhere.
Yeah. They did a variation on the second Toyman from the comics, which was Jack Nimble, in an episode, a season 4 episode called The Children's Hour. And it was just Grant Shaw from Murphy Brown in a jester's costume, and he looked great. The episode,
I don't remember much about that episode, I'll be honest.
He was kidnapping children.
That happened in a few episodes. No. The episode with Penn Jillette involves a child kidnapping plotline.
But he was kidnapping multiple children, so it was almost like they were trying to do that really dark Toyman story from the 90s without actually going that dark.
Yeah. And to be honest, isn't there a DC villain called Pied Piper? Isn't there a Flash villain called the Pied Piper? If you're going to do a story where someone is kidnapping multiple children, just make it the Pied Piper.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the Pied Piper original story anyway, isn't it? Like, he clears all the rats out, and because they won't pay him, he steals all the children from that town. It's like, that would have been a much better, I think, way to do that storyline, potentially. And it's based in the comics. I don't know. But, mate, I don't know. I don't know much about Pied Piper. I just know that it's a character. I just know it's a character on the Flash at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think they had the rights to use any of the Flash villains. Remember, back then, it wasn't like, the MCU is, where you could use this villain from this character in here,
Yeah. I guess I'm just thinking about Smallville and just how many villains they brought in from so many other things. But then they also had Green Arrow, they had Aquaman and Impulse and Martian Manhunter and the Justice Society by the end,
Yeah, they had more leeway to use characters, when it was when it was the Smallville era of the shows. But at this time, it's late 80s, early 90s, they could only, if it was a character from this, if it was this character like Superman, they could only use his supporting cast, his villains. And if they couldn't use a villain that they wanted to use, they would have to, like they did here, create their own. Okay.
Yeah.
I
tell you what, though, Pied Piper they could probably get away with, because technically they could say it's a different Pied Piper based on the original fable, or whatever it was. They could say that's a character that's so old now that surely it's public domain, and they can still get away with it. But I don't know. I figured I would tune into the final season of The Flash just because it's the final season, and it's bad, man. But the Pied Piper is a character that's in it. He's a rogue that sort of turns ally, and he's actually quite interesting. He's like,
well, in the comics, the Pied Piper did do that. He was a rogue for many, many years, and then during Wally West's tenure as the Flash, he went straight. Well,
I mean, they've done something interesting with the final season of The Flash, where they brought a bunch of the rogues in, but now they're freelance members of Team Flash. So if they have a mission or something that someone needs to fight, and somebody else's skill set can be used, they sort of bring in ex-rogues. Like I think the current version of Captain Cold is now on the team. And you've got Pied Piper, and there's a couple of, I think Goldface is the name of one of them. He's like this meta that can turn gold. He's like a gangster, and he's
Goldface was always a Green Lantern foe. Oh boy.
Yeah, well, maybe it's either way. I think that's his name, but he's like this gangster character, and he's actually my favorite character on the show at the moment. He's not in all of it, which is a shame, but he's really quite funny.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I've got on the topic of the Flash now. I guess it's just talking DC to DC to DC, and it's just happened. But maybe we should wrap this up.
Yep.
Thank you all so much for watching us commentate on this third episode of the Ruby Spears Superman show. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. We're probably going to record another episode after this, but I'll try to find a way for the schedule so there'll be something in between the two episodes.
Yep.
But thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, leave us a comment, because we love reading the comments. We always interact with the comments. The only time I don't interact with the comments is if I think maybe it's like English maybe might not be their first language and I don't quite understand what they're asking.
Right.
That's the only time I won't respond to a comment. We love talking to all you guys, and be sure to tune in again next week for more Superman and Superboy content.
Yep. And also, Mr. Carlin, if you're still out there watching our videos, if you could maybe get Marv Wolfman to chime in on some of the comments, it would be appreciated, because we'd love to hear what his opinion on, stuff. And, if I'm getting things right as far as, some of the things that I picked up from the article in Back Issue Magazine all those years ago. And eventually maybe we'd love to have you on, because you were a big part of the Superman rebirth in the 80s.
Yeah. I mean, I want Mike Carlin and Marv Wolfman to both be on at some point. I think there's tons of people I want to talk to: comic book creators, TV writers. John Francis Moore is someone we've got to have on at some point, just because we're loving the tie-in comics so much. It would be fantastic to speak to John Francis Moore. It really would. But to be honest with you, as I think about the stuff I'd potentially like to do for this channel going forward, like I would love a Mike Carlin interview at some point. I want a John Francis Moore interview at some point. What would be really cool is to have them both on together at some point. That could be really interesting to actually have them both simultaneously. I think that could be a lot of fun.
Yep.
But we'll see how it goes. I think that it's always fun to have a guest on the show, and I think having two guests on the show could be a really interesting thing.
We'll just sit back and let them argue.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, video when Sam was at Superman Celebration, when Stacey was there with Ian. Is it Ian Mitchell Smith or
Island?
Ilan or Island? I don't know. I'm sorry, dude. If you see this, I'm sorry. But yeah, that panel at Superman Celebration, they're both on stage. So while Sam was asking the questions, occasionally they would sort of end up both talking, and they would corroborate each other's stories, and it was great. It's a great dynamic, and I'd like to do that at some point on the channel. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Thank you all so much for watching. Goodbye.